Hello and good day to our presentation today, Libelle System Refresh Automation and Live Demonstration. I would like to welcome everybody on the call. I hope everybody can hear me okay. As you may have noted, your phone lines are on mute. So if you would like to communicate to myself and the speaker later, you can use the question and answer feature in your GoToMeeting, or also the chat feature, and then you can directly communicate to us. Again, I want to welcome everybody, and I would like to introduce the speaker and myself. I want to start with my colleague Vamsi, who is going to do the live demonstration later. And Vamsi is a senior technical consultant and is our US Service Delivery Manager. Vamsi joined Libelle in Germany at our headquarters in 2007 as a software developer, and he actually provided a lot of substantial contributions to the very first versions of Libelle SystemCopy in 2010 and 2011 before he moved into his role as a consultant and later joined our team in the United States in 2013. Vamsi has been personally working on more than 50 customer installations on SystemCopy across the world, and his focus today is on very large and complex projects, and he has been delivering our software not only to the largest Libelle customers, but also to some of the very largest SAP implementations in the world here in the United States. My name is Bernd Bayer. I am a solution architect with Libelle. I'm also the vice president of our US operation. I joined Libelle in 2001 in technical sales, and I was instrumental in starting our US operation and key to our official launch of Libelle in Atlanta here in the United States in 2009. My role is more cross-product, so I'm also touching on the other products Libelle is offering to the market, and a few products which are coming out this year, which I'm likely going to touch in the introduction. In my role, I've been providing oversight and project management for critical implementations, and I'm focused today as a solution architect to provide best practices to our current and future customers. This is our team. Again, Vamsi is going to do the technical part. I'm going to do the introduction. What we want to achieve today, so after this 45-50 minutes, I want everybody to walk out of the presentation and get a better idea of what are typical challenges customers generally face when doing system refreshes. How does a typical refresh look like? What are the characteristics in terms of pre-copy and post-processing phases? Of course, we want to talk about how Libelle SystemCopy works, how our task repository works, how you can integrate your own tasks. So with the Libelle SystemCopy, there's going to be standard tasks, which is covering pretty much all the pre and post and copy phases, but there are also customer-specific tasks you can integrate. And some of them are, for example, snapshots or DB restores, or we can automate also the database copy part. Vamsi is going to specifically talk about how we can speed up BDLS and also how we can manage very large environments. Let's say you do 3 refreshes a week because you have 20 or 30 different systems which have to be refreshed all the time. So as the agenda, and to get started, I want to do an introduction on who Libelle is, how SystemCopy works, how the architecture is designed, and what it's supposed to be achieving in your environment. And Vamsi is then going to show you the tool itself as a second part. And then we're going to close off with a question and answer session, so you can ask questions during the conversation, during the presentation, and we're going to address all the questions at the very end. Quick introduction on Libelle. We have been founded in the mid-90s in Stuttgart, Germany. That's where our headquarters is. We are privately held. And we have been in the United States as Libelle since 2009. We had a distribution company before then. Our flagship original software was a disaster recovery tool where we replicate Oracle databases, also DB2, Microsoft SQL, MaxDB. We are replicating HANA databases, Sybase ASE, and this is still at least 50 to 60% of our business where we provide disaster recovery for SAP and also disaster recovery as a cloud services for SAP and non-SAP implementation. SystemCopy we're going to talk about today, officially launched in 2011, and we also have additional software tools which we are launching officially at Sapphire in 3.5 weeks, where we're going to have our own booth. So I want to briefly touch on our product lineup. We used to be a one software solution company, and now we have these multiple products we are offering. We have our disaster recovery division. We have our SystemCopy division. We're going to talk about our SystemCopy tool today, but there are also system clone, client copy, data scrambling solutions, which are part of SystemCopy. And we have a couple of landscape management tools for SAP systems. And again, we're going to present them officially at Sapphire, which is an SAP monitoring tool, EDI monitoring tool, master data status analyzer, and a company dictionary. And we're going to provide a data scrambling solution for not only SAP systems, but also non-SAP systems where we can mask sensitive data in non-production environments. One more slide about Libelle, and then I'm going to get into the SystemCopy. We have some of the largest customers in the world as Libelle customers. We have a lot of public companies, more than $1 billion in revenue. We also have a lot of medium-sized and small companies. We are not focused on a specific industry. We are cross-industry, providing our solutions to the SAP market. And towards the bottom, you see our reach in terms of platforms. We support COS and iOS for SystemCopy, as well as all the Unixes, all the Linux, and all the Windows platforms which are out there. With that, I want to get started with talking about homogeneous system copies. So we are providing a tool to do an automation of homogeneous system copies. So it's not what TDMS is doing. It's not in this form a client copy solution, even that we also do client copies. But the main solution we talk about today is homogeneous system copies. Generally, most companies, most customers face certain challenges when they refresh a QA system, a sandbox system, or a test system from a production database. The process itself is just eventually very long, it's complicated, and it is overly manual. It is prone to errors and mistakes based on the fact that I do things manually, and if I do things manually, I just have the risk of doing mistakes. It is a highly repetitive process. So when we talk to SAP basis people and ask them if they're concerned about replacing what they do with software, they typically are not, because many people are so tired of having to do the same thing over and over. You have to do this multiple times a year, and we know customers, they don't do the refreshes their business is asking for because they simply can't provide them with the resources they have. And I did a simple calculation at the bottom. If you think about the number of your systems, the number of sources, the number of targets, how often you do a refresh, how many tasks do you have per refresh, and how many steps do you have for each of those tasks. And it's just a lot of things you would have to do manually over and over. So the idea of doing an automated system refresh is to have a software-defined system refresh process. If you think about, we are all in IT, so we are doing software, that's our business. And if there's a process which is repeatable, which is keep being repeated over and over, it is the perfect example for something that can be done by software. So when we look at the system refresh process, there are SAP pre and post tasks, there are database tasks, eventually storage tasks if you do a snapshot, operating system tasks. What we are providing is the automation framework, a fairly complete task repository to do the system refreshes automation and run this whole process by software. So basically, if you look at the way the software is defining the workflow, your processes of doing a refresh is following the software. The result is that it's highly standardized, highly repeatable, and it's done by software. So there is, no matter how much outsourcing you do, how much money you save on resources by outsourcing them, you can never beat software in terms of speed and the delivery results. So the benefits of automation, before I talk about the tool, is you optimize the process, you standardize it, you make it more manageable with less resources. It's highly predictable and consistent. If you run into an issue with a software-defined process, you typically have to fix the issue only once, and then the process runs fine afterwards. You have a traceability because software writes log files. If something goes wrong, you look at the logs and see what happened. You deploy it fairly fast in terms of when you do a refresh, instead of a 2 weeks process, it could be a 3-day process. And I was involved in projects where the task at hand was that the customer wanted to take control over his SAP environment, get less dependent on external contractors, and he uses our tool as a vehicle to be more independent from outside contractors by having software doing things that used to be done by a contractor. So Libelle SystemCopy is our solution. It's called short LSC. On the right-hand side, you see a screenshot of the front end with pre-copy and post phases of a specific refresh. We have 3 main components. We have SystemCopy tasks, which are the steps making up a workflow of how we do system refreshes. We're going to run certain exports. We have to take care of the permissions. We have to take care of the users. We have to take care of BDLS. All of that is encapsulated in specific tasks. The second step is server agents. We need some kind of an automation framework which allows us to automate and execute the tasks. And also, if a task doesn't get executed or doesn't get executed properly, that framework needs to raise a red flag and allow you to do something about that. And then also the graphical user interface is the front end where you manage all your different refreshes in one interface. The tasks themselves are then broken down into different task types. On the right-hand side, you see a screenshot of a couple of examples in the post-processing phase. So there is a DB59, which is importing database connection settings, database tasks. SCC7, we are following the SAP abbreviations on that. Generally, the tasks are either ABAP programs, they are shell scripts, they are exports or imports on the database side, executing SQL scripts, executing SAP transactions, or waiting for manual steps to be completed. We call this an interactive task. And what I think sets us apart from other solutions on the market, we have a very, very large task repository. So we separated the framework from the task repository, and we are developing all these standard tasks for customers to run, for example, BDLS or STMS for specific things which are fairly standard. We provide a standard task to make it easy for customers just to standardize the process following our workflow. At the same time, we still open that you can always replace our tasks with your own tasks, or just decide you want to have a different workflow, a different sequence. We are not kind of fixed on this workflow. It's just a proposal which we think is the way system refreshes should be done. The process now is following 3 phases. So let's say we have a production system and we have a QA system. We want to refresh the QA system from production with production data. We have a pre-phase, a copy phase, and a post-processing phase, and those three are later then automated by the Libelle SystemCopy tool. So what we basically do is follow a workflow which says you have an existing QAS system which has all the configuration settings, it has all the references, all the user settings which are specific to QAS. So what we do in the pre-processing phase, we export all the settings we want to keep from that Q settings and just put it aside, put it to disk. Because what happens in the copy phase, you have to copy your complete database and files eventually, if you use Java, from the production system to the QAS system. So after that, that QAS database looks exactly like production, which is good for all the business data, but bad for the configuration settings, which we want to keep. So what we do in post-processing is simply import everything we exported in the pre-processing phase, and now we have all the current business data plus the configuration settings the way it was before. So one of the prerequisites of running Libelle SystemCopy is to have a QAS system which is in a fairly decent state, because we don't fix your environment. Whatever your QAS system looked like before, this is how you get your QAS system back. Now, this is also a side effect of Libelle. When you do a manual refresh, you can have a pretty screwed up system and just fix it manually, do the restore and then fix it again. When you have an automated solution, it forces you not only to standardize the refresh, but also to clean up your QAS systems, because if something is screwed up before, it's going to be screwed up after, and you are encouraged just to fix it for good in the very beginning. And so this is a side effect of having a solution. It also forces you or encourages you to clean up your environment. Next is the question of copying the environment. So Libelle SystemCopy, we have a complete repository for pre, complete repository for post, and we have repositories for the copy phase. But the copy phase doesn't have to follow the steps we are recommending. We are used to customers having all kinds of different copy tools. We have customers, they do backup restore. Some customers prefer backup restore because it's the only way they can quickly copy the database. They just don't have any other tools. We see customers doing backup restore simply because the database is so large that no snapshot or database copy would make any sense. The quickest way for them is restore the database and then continue with post-processing. We have customers, they use NetApp, which is doing a snapshot or a clone of their production system, provides it to us, and we can either wait for that snapshot to be done by the storage team, or we can trigger with our task framework, we can trigger the snapshot, we can trigger the database restore or the log recovery from our software. The same applies to EMC or IBM snapshot tools or HP tools. And the other option is we provide a database copy tool, which is doing an online backup of a database. We support that for Oracle, for DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, MaxDB. We just did a HANA refresh where we back up and restore the HANA database, and we do this for Sybase. So when it comes to the copy options, we are generic. We can tie into however you want to do that copy phase. Now, in the very beginning, very first version of Libelle SystemCopy, we were looking at fairly simple requirements. We had a source system, we had a target system, so we had mainly this one-to-one relationship between a source system and a target system. Now, as our system copy picked up, and it picked up very fast by the market because there is a high demand for system copy solutions. We ran into issues that we found customers, they had like 10 source systems, and each source system had 5 target systems. So we suddenly had these 50 different configurations we had to manage. And we did all of that, but there was no central management of system copy. So in addition to providing a decentralized Libelle SystemCopy solution, we now have this option that one master server is keeping all the configurations, all the workflow information, all the statuses of your complete landscape in a central location. If you don't want to have this master server, or if you have a simpler environment, we can just install that master agent on your target system. If you have 2 systems, might not be worth centralizing it, but if you have 3, 4, 50 or 80, we recommend this master server where you can manage everything from a central location. And this example is from a customer, and you can actually use a central NFS bound to also share the data, that we don't have to copy the execution data over the network, but this again is also fairly optional. Before I hand over the presentation to Vamsi to look at the software itself, I want to quickly summarize what we talked about. We talked about the 3 phases: pre-processing, copy, and post-processing. Libelle is providing an automation framework and a task repository. So we provide all these pre-steps, we provide these copy steps, we provide the post steps out of our either own repository, which is the default repository, fairly generic, or you develop your own customer-specific task repository. And you can just write custom tasks. Vamsi is going to show that to you. You can copy and paste snippets of code into the system copy tool, declare a custom task. It's important that it's halfway standardized, has certain inputs and outputs, but you can pretty much use this as a workflow automation tool based on your own scripts. You see the production server on the left, and there's a LSC worker agent running on production. This can be installed. It doesn't have to be installed. We have some customers where we run on production and the target system. We have many customers where we only run on the target system. Specifically, if the customer is copying the database itself in the copy phase, we have no need of running anything on the production server. We do have the option, though, of running additional satellite systems. So some of our customers, they might have central instance and database server on 2 different systems for QA, and they might have satellite systems. Like one example is an archiving server, which also needs to be updated as part of the refresh, which sits on a different server than production and stage. On the stage server, we have the Libelle installation. So it's a simple /libelle/lsc, relatively flat, where we keep the configuration, where we keep the execution data, the status of the execution, and then the Libelle graphical user interface is connecting to the master server. The master server eventually checks the status of all his worker agents and then reports back to the GUI what the status of that refresh is. With that, I'm getting ready to hand over the presentation to Vamsi. And Vamsi is going to show you the graphical user interface, and he has a couple of scenarios he's going to show you directly on the software. And quickly before I do that, I saw a question if the attendees get this PowerPoint. The answer is yes. And we also are recording the session. And we're going to make a recording available, probably put it on our YouTube channel sometimes this week if you are interested in reviewing that information again. So with that, Vamsi, I'm going to hand over the presenter role to you, and it's all yours. And Vamsi, I think you're still on mute.
Thank you, Vern.
Yeah.
So, sorry. So I'm going to showcase the Libelle SystemCopy software today. As you see already, the graphical user interface. I have some system copies running where the copy phase is finished. I think I've got close to 25 minutes of time, which I would like to spend in introducing the graphical user interface. I would like to walk through on the Setup tab, the Monitor tab, and the Control tab. Then spend some time discussing or talking about the different tasks that we have in the repository, and also cover BDLS and talk about how to create new tasks and the templates that are provided in the software. And then in the end, I would like to talk also about managing complex landscapes. Like we see here, there are 7 different systems which you want to refresh at once, and how we can go ahead and achieve these things. I would like to start off with the agent, the software agent. The software agent is a small binary which runs in Windows. It will run as service. In Linux, it will run as an binary. And then we have this graphical user interface. I've logged into the graphical user interface as developer to show some tasks. Most of the initial work that we do, we start with the Setup tab where we set up the systems that take part in the refresh activities. On the left-hand side, you see the complete list of configurations that I have got on this particular server. And when I click on a particular configuration, we'll be seeing the details about that configuration, which systems take part in that refresh. So we have a system here, P01, which is production, Q01, which is the target SAP and target DB. And I'll walk through each of these after. Now, on the general category, we define the configuration name and give a little bit description about the configuration. This entire configuration is running in demo mode, so the master server is localhost, which is my laptop or my machine. And then we have systems. Under systems, we give all the list of systems that need to take part in the system refresh. So we have here 2 systems, P01 and Q01, and this list can expand. So to add additional systems, we have to click on Edit, and we keep on adding the additional systems here and give appropriate roles. So if you have a distributed installation, we will be having here 4 systems instead of 2, each one having its own role. And these are the 4 roles that we have as of today. We have a source SAP, source DB, target SAP, and target DB. There is an additional role called satellite role, which can be given to any system. And we can define up to 100 satellite systems in one single configuration. So we can literally work with 100 systems in a single refresh. And for each system, we have to define, again, we have to define the roles here. We have to define what's the location where all the executions go, what the parallel processing that we want to set, and then we have to define the SAP data, system type, system name, instance number, Java instance directory if it's a Java stack, the instance profile parameter, and then the clients. So we have to provide all the list of clients that take part in the refresh. Typically, we need to give 000 because we need to export the TMS settings and any other production clients that we want to export the configuration data out. And we need to provide a user for each client and password with which we need to log into the client to work on those clients. And then the logical system name of the client, which will be used to do the conversion for BDLS. And each client will be having a copy and default flag. Copy flag is set when we want to export client-specific data, and default flag is set when we want to use that particular client to trigger the ABAP programs. So we can have here any number of clients again, and we can set the copy flag, but the default flag is only for one client in the list. So we will be using here client 100 to make connection to SAP and execute our ABAP programs. Once we're done providing the SAP data, we come to database information. We provide the database name, the home directory. We don't typically use the user and password because we make connection using the ABAP, the schema owner and schema passwords. So with the dual stack, we need to provide both the ABAP and Java schema users and passwords. Most of this information is extracted from the environment when we are initially creating the configuration. The reason why we don't see here in this test case is because of it's running as a demo mode. But in the real scenario, most of this information will be extracted by the software from the environment variables. So we trigger some binaries in the background, SAP standard binaries, of course, and extract most of this information, with the exception being its users and passwords, which you have to provide. And the users, most of the questions that we come across is what users we might need to provide. We need to provide, we don't need a dialog user. We need, you can provide a service user. And the authorizations, we have a specific set of authorizations that we require to trigger our ABAP programs. So once we fill out each system's information, this can be a bit tedious with the user and password thing, but that's one-time thing. Once we're done with filling out these things, we don't deal with the setup tab that often. All we deal with is the monitor tab, which I will be showing shortly. And then we have a list of tasks. These are the tasks that we that come out of the box with the SystemCopy tool. So this is an overview of tasks that we perform. So if you want to use or export import DB config settings, you have to keep a check here. But again, these tasks are in detail discussed in the tasks section, which I'll be coming up shortly. Copy tool, this particular tab is used if we are supposed to use the DB Shadow software, which is our Libelle database copy tool. But if you're using any other snapshot or storage technologies, we will completely ignore this particular section. But if you're using DB Shadow, we have to configure the DB Shadow information into the tool so that the SystemCopy tool can communicate with the DB Shadow tool and work through that. Then we have some check tasks. These tasks are not part of SystemCopy process. They are just the activities that we perform to check the sanity of the system. We want to make sure that we are doing a homogeneous system copy and not a heterogeneous. So you want to check if the operating system versions are matching and database versions are matching and SAP kernels are matching and all the parameters. And this has no impact on the system copy process itself. Once you confirm that we are performing the homogeneous system copy, we can completely ignore or bypass this check phase. The actual activities that we perform as part of system refresh starts in the tasks phase. As you see here, the pre-phase starts at pre-1, and we have all this set of tasks. Each task is more or less self-explanatory with the transaction code in front of it. We have total of 60 odd pre-tasks where we perform all the exports, including user exports, batch jobs, license keys, transport histories, TMS settings. And then we have the copy phase here. The activities that you see here from copy 1 to copy 10, these are again very specific to the DB Shadow copy tool that we use. In case if you have your own scripts that you want to integrate, you can go ahead and very much do that. I'll be covering that shortly in the next section. And then once we are done with database copy, before triggering the post phase, the first thing in Oracle, for example, we do the ops dollar mechanism, and But even before we trigger the post phase, we have to make sure that DB is up and running on the target box, and then we perform all the post activities. The post activities are pretty straightforward. Whatever we have exported in the pre-phase, we're going to import them, but before importing, we have to trash the data that we got from the production box. So we go to clean those information that we copied from the production system, and then once we get done with the deletions, starting post 65, we do all the imports of the tasks. We do the user import here. These are the transport deltas that we generate. And then we have here BDLS. I'll talk about these tasks in detail in a while. So this is just a skim through the list of tasks that we have. So you don't want to keep watching the GUI forever. So we have an option here where we set the alarming mode. So whenever the task hits error, it's going to trigger an email, and you can look at the email, and it will also email you the content of the error, so you can straight away understand or fix the error and come back to the tool and continue the system copy process. And then global parameters. These are the parameters that are used across the configuration. So we have the concept called placeholders. So we want to make the configurations as generic as possible, where we can reuse the same configuration again and again for different systems in your landscape. So we don't want to hard code any of the system values like the instance numbers or SIDs. So we want to use the generic variables. So one concept that we have is this global parameters, where we want to use the TP profile path, which is mostly pointing to your development system. And this can be used generically across your landscape. And then we have a set of functions that we use in our command scripts or shell scripts. So these functions are in form of snippets that we include here. And you can write your own snippets and keep including them here if you want to program your own code. And then here execution. Here is where we set the parallel execution mode. So we set the parallelization level here for exports, deletes, and imports. And as I said, today we are running only the demonstration mode. When we run the actual system copy, it's going to be in accomplishment mode. So once we are done with the setup, basically it's dealing with these systems here and then configuring tasks. It would be all the activities will be performed in a monitor tab. So in the monitor tab, we can see the infrastructure. So what are the systems that are taking part in the refresh? And then we have this progress bar, which indicates the progress of the system copy. As you see here, we already have some system copies running in different phases here. And I would start a system copy fresh here. But this is the tab that you'll be working day in and day out. This is where you can check all the logs, the activities that are performed by each task. And control tab is most of the activities that you perform on the monitor tab. You'll be seeing the same activities here in control, with the exception being this plan execution. So this is a nice feature. Once you have the confidence in the tool, you could schedule the execution. You can say start in system copy at 9 o'clock Friday, and it would start the system copy process for you for that particular configuration. The administration tab is basically for transmitting the license keys for the system copy software. I would like to get a little bit more into the tasks. So the different type of tasks that we have, let me open up the task here. So for each task we have a unique identifier, and we have a description for the task and a short name for the task. And a task can be client dependent, which means it will be executed for all the clients listed in the system copy tool. And if a task is developed by us, it will be stored as in encrypted format. If the task is developed by you, it will be in clear text format. The other contrasting difference would be all tasks that comes out of box start with L, and any custom specific tasks start with Z or Y in a similar fashion like SAP. And then we categorize the tasks. So we have all these different categories that we have seen in the main window, and we can categorize tasks based on the T code. And if we have any tasks which are very specific to a particular customer, we categorize them as customer-specific tasks. And then we define the execution attributes. So we say whether the task is activated or deactivated, in which phase we want to execute the task, the execution location, where do we want to execute the task, and if we want to wait after the particular task is executed or not. And then these are the different task types we have. We have our own shell scripting language called Libelle shell. It's based on Lua. We can execute command scripts, PowerShell scripts, SQL scripts, ABAP programs, RFC functions, export, delete, and import our RT-trans tasks. We can execute transactions to a limited extent. And anything that we cannot automate, we still want to have the task in the tool as an interactive task, just as a placeholder for you to not break the flow and make the tool as one-stop solution. And for each task, they might or might not be parameters. For example, this task is displaying the SMO2 or SAP message. So we call it this is an ABAP program, and this has some parameters which can be customized. So we have a standard template for this, but if you want to customize the message very specific to your environment, you can write the message exactly the same way that you write an SAP, the expiration date, and then you want to delete the message. And for each task, we again have a set of return codes. We define what is success, what is error, and what is warning. And here is a sample code for the SMO2 task. So we trigger an SMO2 message into SAP, taking these values from the tool. If you want to create a new task, it's pretty simple. You click on New, and you can select the task type. We basically provide you the skeleton to write your own tasks. For example, let's try to use a task to create customer-specific tables. So I say export table, click OK. It's trying to load the template. Write the task. And task is client dependent. If you don't mention anything here, it would be running for all the clients that are listed in the tool. But if you want to specifically export for a client, you can write the client number here. And I'm going to categorize it as customer. I want to execute in the pre-phase, of course, and I want to select somewhere around 57, and I want to wait after this execution and make sure that the task executed correctly. So as a best practice, whenever you're writing new tasks, it's always important that you put a wait after execution to make sure the task is executed correctly. Then you define the parameters. For a typical RT-trans export, you don't have any parameters and return codes. The tool will automatically handle it. And all you have to do is list the tables. Click OK, and it would create a task for you here. And it's waiting after execution. I also would like to cover the BDLS tasks a little bit. So for BDLS, we have SAP standard way of doing it. So we have, as you see, the post 139 and 140. These tasks are the standard reports that SAP triggers. We also have, for DB2, we have a specific set of tasks where we create store procedures and create cursors and update the database directly. This has got us phenomenal results with the updates of the BDLS conversions. We have at least reduced the BDLS runtime to half or more than that. And for Oracle, we have a different way of dealing with it. We identify the list of tables, we create indexes on those tables, and then we split the list and run BDLS updates using those lists. So we trigger multiple SQL processes and pass on this split list for each process and trigger multiple updates at a single time. And again, that is totally customizable. So you can say how many parallel processes you want to set. You can write 5 or 15, it's up to you. And it's going to split the file into 15 different files, and 15 SQL plus processes started, and each process takes one SQL file and triggers the update. Again, this has got us pretty good results. As I said, 50% reduction in the runtime. That being said, we work very closely with our customers and try to plug those loopholes, if any, in the BDLS process and try to optimize it further if required. So I'm going to demo quickly a SystemCopy here. So once we have all the configuration set, we go to Monitor tab and start an execution here. And we can do multiple executions at a single time. And if the SystemCopy process is stopped, we can continue at any point of time here. So I'm continuing here the SystemCopy process. So if there is no error in the check phase, it will straight away kick off the free phase and trigger the exports. Again, this is running in demonstration mode, so maybe the time is not realistic, but typically the export phase, the pre-phase running all those 60 tasks takes somewhere around 30 minutes to an hour, depending upon the user exports that we have. So it depends upon how many users we have to export. But once it passes that user export phase, it's going to kick off things in parallel. So as you see, it's doing 10 RT runs at a time, and it's going to be extremely fast in the free phase. So typically around 30 to 45 minutes they'll be done with the free phase in most of our customer environments. And you don't have to keep the GUI open. You can close the GUI and start it again. The execution is not depending on the GUI. The graphical user interface is periodically checking with the server process, which is this process here, and getting the information and updating the information. So you can close the GUI. As I said, you can set the alarming here, and if there is any error, it will trigger an alarm. So when we talk about, the last thing I want to talk about is conflict landscape. So you might be having the same process, the same workflow, which you want to execute for 10 different systems, and you don't want to have 10 different configurations, which is fairly understandable, because if you change one task in a configuration, it has to go in other configurations. So we have a concept called the master configuration. So if you see here, the list of systems, I have here all the systems listed here, And whatever system we want to perform refresh, we set that particular system as the target Sapien target TE. So switching roles is pretty easy. So I go to Q01, take off the flags, go to Q05, put the flags, and it's ready for the system refresh on Q05. And this taking off flags and putting the flags on a different system is again can be completely scripted using our command line interface tool, with which you can straight away trigger a script which would switch the flags accordingly to the system that you want to refresh. And the last thing I would like to cover would be the delivery methodology. So typically, as you all know, any automation tool is to magnify the process efficiency or inefficiency. So that's the reason why we work very closely with our customers to make sure we understand your process and try to blend it with the existing tasks that we have. If we find any tasks that are not matching your requirements, we try to give you a fair estimate of the possibilities of automating the task, or if it's not possible, we would let you know or ask you to put that in the tool as a placeholder to perform that activity manually. But on a very generic ground, I would like to say we have close to 90 to 95% of our tasks which come out of box should suit most of the requirements of our customers. There might be 5 or at max 10% of tasks that need to be customized or prepared for customers, but 90 to 95% of the tasks are coming out of box and they should fit the requirements. And that being said, would like to pass it on to Bern to start the Q&A session.
Great, and thank you very much, Vamsi. Great presentation as always. I would like to encourage everybody, if you have any questions, use the Q&A features. I see there are a few questions in. Just type the question in. And also, while we are waiting for the question to come in, I have like a 5-minute Q&A session and then finish in time. Vamsi and I were sitting together and were thinking, what can we do for all those people who attended the webcast? And we got together with marketing, and marketing is sponsoring a proof of concepts. And what we usually do with a proof of concept is a 3-day engagement over 2 weeks, and it's usually at $4,500, which we charge as a flat fee. And we would give those away for free for the first 3 companies or customers who are interested. So what basically happens, we plan a 2-week period, we install the Libelle SystemCopy software, we give you a license key, and we refresh one of your systems that you can test drive the software. So this is the idea of doing this software evaluation. We limit this to 3 because again usually we charge, and we limit this to 3. So I just leave this slide on, and I would start with working on the questions. The first one was earlier, can we get the PowerPoint after the session? Answer is yes. Jillian, whom you got the invite from, or myself, or Vamsi is going to send out the PowerPoint. We also probably going to send you a link to YouTube where we're going to upload the recording. Next question would be what user runs Libelle on the server? Vamsi, can you address that? I think it's the OS user what is asked for.
Yeah, Libelle software runs as Citadium user because most of our tasks are based on R3 trans and a backend SQL, and CDDM user can perform all these tasks. So we run the software as CDDM.
Okay. And another question, can we refresh the development systems with the software as well? Or only I think it's kind of QAS refresh versus development.
Yes, we can refresh development systems. There are some development specific tasks where we export the repository versioning and all those stuff out from the development system before we perform a refresh. Yes, we do refresh development systems.
Okay. Is the Libelle software only suitable for homogeneous environments? I think the question is if we support heterogeneous system copies.
Currently, we only support homogeneous environment. We do not, or the tool will not support heterogeneous refreshes.
Okay. Next question, does the tool support system copy based on Oracle RAC with SAP?
Yes, the database copy is being performed. The tool is capable of doing the pre and post activities without any issues. It should support Oracle RAC.
Okay. What's the yearly license fee for the software? I think I can address that. It's a perpetual license, so you buy the license and then you pay annual maintenance. And the license starts at 19,600 per source system. And then you're going to buy a software license implementation for a single system that could be as little as 5 days. If it's 2 or 3 systems, we recommend 10 days plus annual software maintenance. Just send me an email or Jillian and we can put a quote together based on your environments. Next question, can we refresh Java-only subsystems as well?
We can refresh Java-specific systems, but again, there is a limitation with the Java-only systems because of the complexity involved with the file system. As of now, Java's refreshes are being done, but there is quite a bit of manual activity that we need to perform to get the system up and running.
Okay. Does this work for HANA-DB?
Yes, the tool works for HANA-DB. In fact, a couple of days ago, we have done a HANA-DB installation, and it's working fine.
Okay. Is it possible to execute the pre-steps on one host and use the execution file on the post steps on another host? I know you did that for one customer, but maybe you can talk to that quick.
Yes and no. You can execute the pre-steps. Most of the pre-steps, as you have seen, 80% of the tasks are R3 trans based. So we should be good to go ahead and run those imports on a different system. But whatever data we have in, for example, a QA system will go into a sandbox. If that is something which you want to do, yes, the tool can do that.
Okay. Looks like this tool can be used for only client copies. Can this tool be used for database complete refreshes? And I think this might be a misunderstanding because it's actually the other way around. It's actually we do the full system copy, so it's a complete database refresh, and we can also do client copies. So what we do is we do a system copy, and then we can also refresh a client if you have multiple clients you want to build. I
know maybe that's
okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Maybe that's because of the explanation of the client concept there in the tool. When I said we export the client specific data, there are some tables which are client dependent and some tables which are not. So we have to define the set of clients for which we want to export the client specific data and import them back in the post phase. But this tool is doing the complete refresh end-to-end in the database perspective.
Okay. We have like 7 more questions, but we are out of time. We're going to need probably 5-7 more minutes. I would rather respect everybody's time, and I see all the questions on my screen, and I would answer to everybody individually on the questions, and we would like to actually close off the session at this point. I hate to cut it off because they are really, really good questions, but we're going to answer them individually. And with that, again, contact us. We're going to send you a follow-up email on this free evaluation if you're interested. We want to thank everybody for your time you spent today with us, and we hope we can talk to you again soon. If you're interested, we can set up the same session for you and your team within a 45 or 1 hour workshop setting online. Again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Vamsi for the great presentation, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you, and we're going to close the session now. Thanks and goodbye.